Hey, hey, hey! Welcome back to Authentic Talks. My name is Shanta generally, and I am your host. I am beyond thrilled about today's conversation. This one is special. Not only are we diving into a deeply human story, but we're talking about something too many people avoid until it's too late. Before we dive in with introductions for today's episode, I do want to take a moment to welcome each and every last one of you. Let's take this one a little bit further. If you are able to leave a review, that would really be awesome. Reviews can be left on Apple Podcasts as well as Podchaser. Thank you so much in advance for leaving that review. One thing many of us know that have lost a loved one is that the death of a loved one can be devastating, but the financial aftermath shouldn't make it worse. Yes, too many families find themselves overwhelmed by probate, missing paperwork, and financial confusion when a loved one passes. If you're financially tied to someone, a spouse, a parent, child, or a business partner, are you truly ready for what happens when they're gone? I am joined today by two amazing people. First, Pam Baker, who is the founder and CEO of Widows Who Whine, which is a community and app designed to help women find connection, support, and the best friends they ever knew they needed. Her mission is simple: to help women rebuild a life filled with laughter, friendship, and joy, even after an unimaginable loss. And I'm also joined by her nephew, Cameron Zabko, a certified financial planner. He is a wealth advisor and the founder of West Hollow Wealth Management, where he helps families, business owners, and individuals take control of their financial future through holistic financial planning. You guys, together they wrote this amazing book to help guide you on what steps to take to ensure you're ready and not leaving your family having to scramble after you're gone. The book they wrote, Where's the Keys to the Safe, is also helpful for anyone who is wondering what steps they need to take and they're in the now what phase. Together, Cameron and Pam have written a book that is eye-opening as it is necessary. Where's the Keys to the Safe? And I cannot wait to unpack it with them. So get ready for a raw, real, and incredible, insightful talk about love, loss, legacy, and how to protect your future before the unthinkable happens. Let's dive on in. Please welcome Pam and Cameron to Authentic Talks 2.0. Authentic Talks is all about authentic conversations. This show is all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and become your authentic self, then this is the podcast for you. And I am your host, Shanta. Welcome to the show. Hi, Pam. Hi, Cameron. Welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have both of you on as a guest today. And I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to be talking about. You both bring a different perspective to this, and so I'm excited about it. And congratulations on your new book, which we're going to talk about today as well. Pam, can I have you introduce yourself to our listeners before we dive in?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for having us. We're really excited to share with you and just be on your show. We're super fans of Authentic Talk. So I'm Pam Baker. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and have 4 kids. They're ages 16 to 26, so semi-adulting, not all the way there, but yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited to have you. And Cameron, the mic is yours.
Cameron Zabko. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm also Pam's nephew. So that's how we, got together to write this book.
Well, welcome to the show. Welcome. Let's go ahead and dive on in. Pam, can you talk with us a little bit about walk us through what happened in 2021?
Sure. And I'll back it up a tiny bit into 2018. My husband, we started dating when I was 18 years old. He was 20. And we were together for 30 something years, married for 24 years. But in 2018, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is an aggressive brain cancer. And he was given about 12 to 14 months to live. And he fought a very valiant fight. And we did all the things and, did everything we could to prolong his life. And he lived really, really, really quite well for 2 years. And then in 2021, everything started just taking a turn for the worst. And in November of 2021, he passed away. And, he was also a certified financial planner. Cameron actually worked for my husband's company. He had his own business. And, it was, when you get a diagnosis like that, you hold on to hope that you could be the one that gets to beat it. And we held on to that hope, but also knew that it wasn't a great sentence to get when we got that diagnosis. It was one of those things that you sort of think you're planning for, but it still knocks you sideways when it does show up.
When he was diagnosed, what did those days look like for you guys? Did you instantly go into, let's start planning?
No, that's what's so hard. I talked about this just the other day with someone. It's really hard when you have someone who, even though they have a horrific diagnosis with very little chance of survival, having that talk feels like you're giving them the message that you don't have hope for them.
I don't know why I hung on to hope, which makes sense.
Yeah, it feels like you've given up, like, oh, we got a plan for this because so let's make a plan. And we'll get into this with the book, but that's one of the reasons why we wrote this book. You got to do all that stuff before tragedy hits, before you get hit by a car going to work or you get a diagnosis. Having those conversations beforehand is a lot easier and there's a lot less emotion involved. And I will say, we felt pretty strongly. We had he was a financial planner, for goodness sake. He was a very successful financial planner and a whole team. And we had a lawyer and we had a CPA. We thought we had things tied up pretty tight. And I found out very quickly after he passed that we actually did not have things tied up very tightly. So Cameron worked for him, so that was convenient because I had my right-hand man right there. Cameron's just like my own son, too. Yeah, it was very convenient to have someone so close in the family be there to go through all those steps with me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's good that he was there. So we're definitely going to come back so we can talk more about the story. Cameron, she mentioned that you work with her husband and that you were a great support. And I want to talk about Pam's story, but before we dive in with talking about that, I know that there's some things that most people need to have planned out. Can we talk about that? If you know that you're going to have a loved one, that this is something that is inevitable.
And Pam always says we have to become more comfortable with talking about death because everybody dies. But it's not just if you have someone that, has a diagnosis or they're getting older. It's really everybody. If you have some kind of financial tie to anyone, you should have your ducks in a row so that if something does happen to you, that, you're not leaving a mess behind to your loved ones. So everyone always goes to the will. The will's kind of the first thing people think about. They put a lot of emphasis on the will and they think that's the end all be all. For most people, the will is not enough. Your will is more like a catch-all for anything that you didn't pass on through the use of other tools like a trust or beneficiary designations. And it's not the best way to pass assets because it will have to go through probate. We're in Georgia and probate is not that bad in Georgia. It's not that long of a process. It's not that complicated, but there are states that probate takes a lot longer.
So even if you have a will in place, you still have to go through probate?
Mm-hmm. So the only way around probate is to pass your assets through things like a trust or through beneficiary designations, because those will go outside of the will. If you pass away without a will or anything in place, then your whole estate needs to be probated at that point. We don't like probate for a couple of reasons. Like I said, it could be lengthy. That's the biggest one. So if your loved ones are waiting for their inheritance to pay bills or, pay the mortgage, pay the car payment, that can be financially devastating to somebody, put them into debt, take their credit, all that. It's also public. So if you have relatives that you want excluded from your estate, they're going to be able to see what's been passed to your beneficiaries and cause issues for them later on down the road. So they can contest the will, they can show up in court. And it also opens you up to creditors. If there's some person that's trying to have a lawsuit against your beneficiaries, they're going to know exactly how much money passed to them through the probate process. So if those are concerns for you, then you want to make sure you're implementing other tools, like I said, like a trust, like beneficiary designations on top of the will. The will, like I said, is really just a catch-all, the last line of defense. If we missed anything, it'll go through the will.
So just to clarify, probate is a court proceeding.
So typically, if you have a will, you'll hire an attorney to go through the probate process, and they'll, submit the will to the court, do all the required paperwork. The judge is going to read the will, read any other documentation. And ultimately, it's the judge's and the court's decision what happens to your assets. So they're going to follow what you have written, but it's also up to some interpretation. If you want a more airtight plan with no questions and you don't really want a judge making the final decision on your assets, that's where we're looking at other tools, like I said, like a trust, and not necessarily passing everything through the will.
If you want to set up a trust, do you have to go through a financial planner like yourself in order to do that?
I think that's usually a good place to start. I'm not an attorney. I don't draft documents, but the trouble that a lot of people run into is they'll go to an estate planning attorney and they'll walk out with a trust and they have no idea what it does. They don't use it properly and they don't really know what they paid for or how to use it, how to implement that tool. So if you can start with an unbiased third party, like a financial advisor or anyone that has good business sense or estate planning sense that's not selling you a trust like an attorney is, they can help walk you through how to set up that plan. Then you can take that to the attorney and say, this is what I want implemented. That way, both sides understand what the thoughts were behind the estate plan, what the intended target is on what these documents are aiming to accomplish. For the most part, people walk into the estate planning attorney and get an off-the-shelf document that they've used for hundreds of other people, and it's not necessarily tailored to their exact situation.
More cookie cutter version of the plan.
Oh, that's
interesting. And that's a lot of the book is referencing that sort of thing, where you need to be your own advocate and you need to know enough about the estate planning process, your finances, your taxes, so that you can be that advocate for yourself. It's not necessarily that they're maliciously trying to trick you. They don't know exactly what you want and you don't know how to express what you want. So you're getting what's worked in the past for other people. And that's not always the best case scenario for yourself.
Got it. So Pam, can you tell me how the idea of where's the key to the safe come from? The name of it. Whenever I read the name of the book, Where's the Key to the Safe, I had a visual and I pictured someone literally looking around for a key. And then my brain went to bigger things like, I need to unlock some answers. So my brain was just going all over the place with it. I love the title of the book. It can mean
I'm so glad your brain went there, because that's exactly why it's named that. I did not know where the key to the safe was in our house. When I finally found it, I didn't know how to open it. And I remembered so vividly John telling me, my husband's name was John, always saying, you need to figure out how to open this safe. I was like, no, I don't. I have you to do it. It's a weird safe. So it takes a key and it's got to turn, but it's like the opposite. You got to turn it the opposite way, your old fashioned locker. It's counterintuitive. So Cameron and I literally YouTubed videos on how to unlock this freaking safe and finally got into it. I didn't even know where the key to the safe was, which is pretty basic information when your husband is dying and you know that for 3 years. Didn't know where the will was either, by the way. And so, yeah, that's why we named it that. Unlocking the key to your financial future by following these steps in the book. You are literally being given the key to protecting your assets, to avoiding probate. I mean, that's the whole theme of it. So your brain went exactly where it should have. That's so perfect.
Oh, okay. But you did a great job naming the book.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I literally could picture that in my head. Could also imagine a lot went through because I'm a visual person. So after your husband passed away, what was it that you noticed about society and the way that we treat widows? What came up for you?
Well, everybody shows up right away with their casseroles and their food and all the things. And after a few weeks, everybody goes back to living their lives, which is just a normal part of when somebody dies. The difference with widows is I call it an antiquated view of what widows look like. People still kind of lump us into the forgotten little old lady sitting on the front porch, wrapped in her blanket at the end of her life. But so many of us are in the middle of our lives. And our story doesn't stop just because our husband's story stopped. And there's so much more going on. There's all these multi-layered weirdnesses that there is no system to support widows, in my opinion. There's grief groups. That's it. And you can sit in your grief, and if you come out of your grief too soon, people are like, "Oh, I guess she's over her husband." Like, there's a lot of complicated emotions that go along with it.
I wanted you to walk us through what it was like. At what point did you really know that he's going to transition over? Was it kind of like you knew that he had a health issue, but
I think we held on to a glimmer of hope for the first 2 years. Like I said, he was doing really well. And then he would go through battles mentally. He'd slump into a little depression, and I'd be the cheerleader and lift him back up. He ultimately had a seizure while he was driving one day and got into a really terrible accident. Broken legs, punctured lungs, fractured ribs, all. And that, after that, he wasn't able to drive anymore. He was a race car driver. Like, that was his hobby. Like, he was an instructor for Porsche and BMW, and he loved driving. So he wasn't able to drive anymore. It was like one of the last things the disease took from him. He couldn't fight his way back mentally. His fight was gone. So we all kind of knew it took a lot of lifting of his emotions, a lot more than it took before. That was the beginning of the end. And he just got worse and worse. And as the tumor grew and there weren't a lot of options left, he'd exhausted his clinical trial options and exhausted his, you could do chemo and radiation twice. And he used up those weapons, those tools in the toolbox. There wasn't a whole lot left. I'd say September 2020 is when we knew that we were toward the end, but definitely by like August of 2021, my girlfriend is a photographer, and we did what I knew was going to be our final family photo shoot. We knew we were taking steps that it was coming. Like, this was going to be the last one of this and that. And, so then we knew by the summer, really, of 2021 that each thing was our last.
Sometimes you don't know what to say. I had just talked to someone about this. I've had several conversations, but for some reason, when it's right in front of me, everything goes out the window. I wanted to say sorry for your loss, but then I was like, no, they said don't say that. You're supposed to say this. And then my brain was all over the place about the proper way to address that. I'm glad that you're able to help other people through your story of what happened with you, and that it birthed a book that is not only helping people with the emotional side, but also helping them with what to do, because that's something most people do not think of. It's the last thing that you're focused on. You're mostly focused on your healing process. And it's like not too often that people are wanting to talk about that side. And I love what Cameron shared about what you have said to him, which is that this is a conversation that we have to get used to talking about. And death is an uncomfortable conversation. It really is, because it's something that most of us don't want to think about.
It's so true, and it's so crazy. Everybody dies. You don't know when it's going to happen. There has to be a way to normalize the conversation. Doing this kind of planning ahead of time is easier when you can talk about it without being triggered with emotions or worried about how somebody's going to react. When you're trying to make all these decisions while you're grieving, it's impossible. We haven't talked about this yet, but when you were asking me about what I did and what I found out there for support, I didn't find any support. Ultimately, in February 2023, I created a group called Widows Who Whine, WINE. I wanted to create a social group for widows, because that's the loneliest thing. You're lonely because you're not the third wheel or the fifth wheel, or when you're with your single friends, they're all complaining about their men or their exes or whatever. And there's no space for us to be out and normal. So I created this social group, and it's grown. Like, the first one had 14 people, and now there's over 350 women in Atlanta in it. And so I've heard these stories over and over again. You don't know what to say. And the problem is, you could say that same thing, "I'm so sorry for your loss," to 10 different people, and 10 different people will have a different reaction. That might make somebody so annoyed, but then that might be the perfect thing to say. And that's what's crazy about grief and loss, is it's so individual that nobody really knows what the right thing to say is. Yeah. I'll tell you what I don't like, and I make fun of this all the time. I get resounding feelings of affirmation with this every time I bring it up to anybody. It's the head tilt, like, "How are you?" So don't do that.
Yeah. It's like, how do you think I'm doing? I am getting through the best that I can. Like, what do you say to that? It's like,
Oh,
Do you really want to know?
I know. Or are you just asking me because you're actually also grieving? You want me to take care of you, honestly.
Wow.
It's a weird world, but
Yeah.
honestly, I don't have a lot of memories of the first year after John died. I have 4 kids. So I was really focused on them and Cameron and Hallie, his sister, she and Cameron's mom live with me. They moved in after John passed away. So we have our little co-parenting situation. He was their father figure too. So it's all the loss and the focus goes there. I really don't have any memories. My point is, when you're trying to make big financial decisions while grieving, when your brain is not functioning, it's nearly impossible. There's so much room for things to go wrong that you really want to do all this ahead of time. So you're not trying to do it then. And then you can just be with your family and be with your loved ones and honor the person you've lost instead of trying to scramble and figure out how to do all this stuff and avoid probate when it's too late. You're already.
That totally makes sense. We have to talk about the roadblocks you faced and how you and Cameron came together to write the book. But before we move on, I have to ask you, what have you seen in the group that you created as far as transformation? How's it going? Are people opening up and sharing their experiences?
Incredible, actually. It's grown so much, and I have so many stories almost every single day, and certainly every time we get together. I organize one social thing a month. And what it can be, Cameron's done a financial planning 101 for us, and we've done, so some of it we do, I call it learning and libations. We do some learning thing like home maintenance 101 and stuff like that. But mostly like we'll do axe throwing, or one time I rented a movie theater out for all of us to go to the movies. Just fun things. But now I tell these women, this is your group. It's not my group. It's our group. If you want to have something creative, there's a book club. There's widows who dine. There's widows who cornhole. There's widows who mahjong. Widows who golf. We have all kinds of offshoots of fun things. And we have our widow group going to Costa Rica in October. And I had a bunch of them over at my lake house. We just do all kinds of fun stuff. I've seen a lot of transformations and so many stories from women who have been widowed for years, and they come to our group and it's the first time they feel like they can breathe because they're with people who get it. And they don't have to wear this mask. They don't have to put on their guard to say, oh, what are they going to say? Or what, is this going to be weird or whatever? They just walk in and they're like, oh, I'm with my people. I can breathe, And just seeing women, it's the loneliness, women who have said they just wander around their house like a shell of a person. And now they have these groups and they're vibrant and traveling and doing really cool things. So I hear it all the time. These women are like, you saved my life. You've literally threw me a lifeline and saved my life. And the whole thing is just finding joy, and it's okay to be happy again. And they would want us to know that. But how do you get there? What do you do when you don't have people to show you how? It's really, really cool. It's been my greatest joy, and all the joy that they say that this group has brought them, it's brought me so much too. So it's been pretty amazing.
I love that. I absolutely love it. So you have to tell me, you had a will in place at the time. And then even though you had a will in place, you found that there were still some challenges that you faced. Can you share with us what were those challenges? And then we'll go to Cameron to talk about how he showed up for you and was able to help, and then how we got to this place of writing the book.
There were a lot, and I can just run down a couple of things. First of all, I didn't know where the will was. And when we did find it, it was so old that it was outdated. My youngest child was not even on it. I feel like John would never have not updated it, but our lawyer didn't have it. So I don't know what happened. That was a huge oversight. Titling of our properties, our accounts of our vehicles. We didn't have everything co-owner, so there were a lot of struggles. Like I tried to sell my car. It was my car, but I didn't know where the title was. I went to the DMV and found it. It was in John's name because he's the one that bought it. He bought it for me. It was my car, but my name wasn't on it. So then that whole process.
When someone transitions over, that's not enough to show a death certificate that they're no longer here? Or...
Yes, showing the certificate that
got it.
Prolongs the whole process of then, just everything was like that extra step to go take care of things. So it was a lot of things. Oh my gosh, Cameron, what else? I know there were like 5 million things that we were like, oh my God, how do we not know this?
Yeah, I think the first thing, because like Pam said, John did pretty much all the finances, and Pam helped with bill paying sometimes. For the most part, John understood the cash flow. He understood how the money's coming into the house, understood like the big expenses going out the door. my biggest concern was getting Pam comfortable that she's not going bankrupt and getting her to a place where she wasn't freaking out all the time about money because she no longer had an income coming in. John passed away. His business got sold off. And so there was her money that she had was there to last for the rest of her life. Making sure that we're smart about it and what are we going to do with the money, and just getting her to a place where she felt like she didn't have to. I don't even know what you were doing at that point, but everything you were doing was like,
I was used to being able, I never had to really think about it. John was very successful, like I said, so I would buy when I wanted and did what I did. And I didn't really have any concept of cash flow at all. And I grew up without any money. Like we had no money when I was a kid. So I think I just went back to that poverty mentality of like, I'm going to lose it all. It's all going to be gone. I have all these kids and we have college and we have this and what if the market crashes? I went into full panic mode. Like I could not get in my mind how we were really going to survive without more money coming in and make what he made. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. I was like, I can't it just put me in, it pushed all my deep-seated panic buttons for sure.
Yeah. So that was step one, getting her past that. And then step two was we had this outdated estate plan because John's gone now. It took her a lot of time to figure out, like she was saying, she didn't really have a purpose, and she developed what is why. And then she came out of like that poverty mentality. And then she started figuring out like, what do I want to be doing with these assets to preserve John's legacy? And so from there, we were able to create the new estate plan. And then she really understood like how the money was invested and what we're doing with it. And then how this estate plan wraps into that. We just barely wrapped up the estate plan because it's a complicated one. Not everyone needs a complicated one like this. It's more of a legacy-based estate plan instead of just like, here's your money to the kids, And so, it's been over 3 years at this point. It takes a while. And that's the big thing we always say. You don't have to do it all at once. You can do it in steps, because a lot of people delay doing any of it because they're like, oh, well, I don't know who I want to be the guardian of my kids, or I don't know who I want to be my executor. But there is stuff in your mind that you can answer right off the bat. We'll start with those documents first, right? Is it your executor, the person, that takes care of your estate when you pass away? If it's your guardian or your medical power of attorney.
Your estate, that's like all of your property and the things you own?
So your estate is pretty much anything that hasn't passed through a beneficiary designation. When you open up an IRA or a bank account, you have an option to name someone as the beneficiary of that account. So that stuff passes outside of probate. It passes outside the will. So that's also very important to make sure that that matches your estate plan, because otherwise it'll supersede your estate plan. So I've seen many times with clients, they have an ex-spouse listed as their beneficiary on their 401k. And if something happened to them, the money would go to the ex-spouse, right? So it's important to make sure everything's dialed in and complements each other. If your estate plan says one thing, but your beneficiary designation say a different thing, well, they need to match up. So yeah, I've seen a lot where people delay because they can't answer all the questions at once. But I just think it's really important to answer what you can and get done what you can, because anything you're able to accomplish in your estate plan is going to help whoever you're leaving behind. Eventually, if they persevere and keep going with it, you'll have a complete estate plan. There's multiple ways to do it. You can use an online service like TurboTax, where you answer some questions and it spits out an estate plan. That's really good if you're self-motivated. If you're not self-motivated, you're dragging your feet, an estate planning attorney is probably the better route, because they're your accountability buddy and they're going to make sure that you're progressing and finishing the process. So lots of ways to accomplish all the things that you need in an estate plan. It's just kind of picking out matches your personality and what matches, your ambition level, I guess, to make sure that it happens and stop dragging your feet about it just because you feel uncomfortable.
And I think it's important to remind people that estates aren't for super wealthy people. I think people think like, I don't need an estate plan because I'm not a millionaire or I don't have a lot of assets. But an estate plan is just smart to have in place for almost everybody.
I love that you brought that up, because I do believe that a lot of people think that way, that that's for your Elon Musk or when they have like millions or. So I love that. That was a good ad, because any type of home that you have, it's good to have it in there.
Yeah. Oh. And these online services now, I mean, you can walk out with an estate plan for a married couple, like $300, right? Wow. It's not expensive. So as long as that aligns with your goals and you can accomplish what you want to accomplish, it's a very low cost option just to do it with an online service.
Wow, that's good to know. So Tell me about the book. Like, after you were able to walk through all the different steps and get everything in order, how did the book come about? Were you guys just like, let's do this? Or who had the idea?
Very early on, my thought was, oh my God, if I had 3 years to plan for my husband's death, he's a financial advisor. He had a whole team at his office. We had a lawyer. We had a CPA. If this is this difficult for me, then how does the everyday person who doesn't have that whole team, and also they just die suddenly, heart attack, car accident, something unexpectedly, how in the world do they do it? And that's most people, I would say. So that's where the seeds of the book started growing. So I was like, man, people need to know about this. People got to know more. This has got to be, we need to tell people. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And so I was like, I can do this. And, I started tinkering with it, but then I was like, I can tell my story, but I don't have the professional perspective on it. So then I went to Cameron. I'm like, hey, I think you need to write this book with me. At this point, you can come do this with me. And I don't know. He says, I don't know. I bamboozled him and made him do it with me.
So she started asking if we were going to write a book, what topics would we talking about? And then it turned into a book from there. It took us a long time. Pam did many classes about how to write a book. And then we eventually started writing it. We'd stop, we'd stall. It's hard to sit down and force yourself to write.
Oh, yeah.
It's like studying. If you're not in the right headspace to do it, nothing happens. Yeah, you have bursts of productivity, and then other times you just sit at your computer for 45 minutes. You're like, well, tonight's not going to be a writing night. So we started writing an estate planning book. And then we realized that even if we write the best estate planning book ever, if it's someone like Pam picking up the book that didn't have, the financial background, a lot of this isn't going to make sense to them. And so it quickly turned into like financial planning 101 as like the base knowledge that you need. So that's the first half of the book. And then getting into the estate planning topics on the back end so that you understand the big picture of why this is important because you have the base knowledge on the front end. So we took a lot of stories from Pam's widows and her group about stuff that they had go wrong. We took, stuff that we saw in Pam's plan that went wrong and combined those. And then I added basic financial literacy items that a lot of people don't know. Things like car insurance, home insurance, and making sure you're being a good consumer. You're not getting, I don't want to say scammed, but there's better ways to be spending your money and just being, like I said, a good consumer and being good with your money. I think there's something in this book for everybody, regardless if you have an estate plan or you're fresh out of college and you're trying to start on a good financial footing. It's kind of the whole gamut. Every now and then we say, oh, that would be really good to write about in our second book, but there's no official time for that. Yeah, no.
Well, and it's funny because when John died, I read a lot of financial planning books. I was like, I'm not going to get taken advantage of in this whole thing. Even though we had a CPA and a lawyer, John had the relationships with them and I didn't know them. I was trying to arm myself with knowledge. The books were so boring and cold and clinical. John would always try to get me. And I'm like, this is your job. This is finance. I have a psychology degree. I'm the other way. So every book I read was horrible and boring. It was like work to get through. That's why the cover is very pretty. Everything about it is meant to be aesthetically pleasing, warm, inviting. The way we write is very conversational. I wanted it to feel like you're sitting down having a cup of coffee with your girlfriend, and every chapter we cover something different, but every chapter starts with Pam and I give a little anecdotal story about that topic. And then Cam comes in with the professional perspective. Even on the professional stuff, he writes in a style that's very easy to understand and conversational. So
I love that.
It really feels doable. You're not in there with your eyes glazing over. It's like you're having a cup of coffee. I was really happy with the way it turned out. Cameron's friend Sydney did some illustrations for us to make it really just that much easier, all the different types of learning styles and everything, just to have them included. And then we did a workbook that goes along with it. So you can literally go chapter by chapter, fill it out. At the end, if you fill out that workbook, that you also just take to your estate planning lawyer and be like, oh, there's my stuff.
Nice. It's good stuff. The book cover is attractive. You hit a home run with that. It looks good. The title of the book makes you want to know more and open it up. You guys did a great job. I love that you worked together to help other people and shared so much knowing they should do this now. They don't have to be in the same situation where someone is sick or ill, or going through like an end of life type situation, something that people can do now. How old would you recommend someone be? Like, is there an age? Like, do you have to be like 40 or 30?
I would say if you have any sort of financial obligation or tie to anybody, you should get your estate planning in order. So like if you're, let's say 19 years old, you don't have any kids, let's say you have like an investment account, well, you should still put beneficiaries on that account, right? Have them go to your parents or your siblings just to make their lives easier, right? You don't necessarily need like a full blown estate plan at that point, but you can do what you can to make it easier for others if something were to happen to you. Now, if you have financial obligations where people are depending on you to earn an income to pay the bills, that's where you need to get more serious about your estate plan and looking at life insurance, making sure that everything's buttoned up and making sure that those you leave behind are able to survive without your earning ability down the road. Same thing if you're an aging parent, right? And you have adult children, they have their own lives to go on. They're going to be grieving when you pass away. So how can you make their lives as easy as possible? They might not be financially dependent on you anymore, but their life is going to be uprooted for a year, 2, 3 years, however long it takes them to settle your estate. And then you also want to limit any kind of infighting between family members, siblings. And so I would say a good estate plan takes all the decisions out of the business of death. You've already made those decisions for the people that you're leaving behind. All they have to do is execute that estate plan. And so that eliminates a lot of the infighting. It eliminates any
ambiguity.
Yes. And then eliminates any sort of issues in the probate process as well. So you've already made those decisions. You've taken the drama out of it. And it's even better if you have the time to explain why you designed your estate plan to them, which is what I always recommend as well. Just so that they understand.
Write a letter about why they did it?
Yes. We always suggest doing a family love letter. And you can lay out in there whatever you want. That's whatever is not in your will. It can be life lessons you learned, things that you want to make sure they know about the family. You tell them that I laid out my estate plan for these reasons, and this is why maybe this person got this thing and this person got it's whatever you want to put in there. Also making sure that you put like what you want your end of life ceremonies to look like, because that's all information that's not going to be in your will. It's not going to be in your trust. It's another step in the estate planning process. It's not a formal document. You don't need an attorney to do that. It's just whatever information that you want to pass on to the next generation.
Mm-hmm. But important, those end of life celebrations, oftentimes, in my case, I knew exactly what John wanted, and not everybody in the family was on the same page with that, and we didn't write it down. So it did lead, some issues with feelings or, compromises that weren't what he would have wanted necessarily. And so, that was one thing. And we're like, oh, why didn't we write that down? So writing it down, there's no ambiguity. It's like, this is what he wanted. Let's do it.
Family members on his side that came out like where they were not happy with things or wanted some of his like, hey, I want that car, I deserve the house, or all of that.
Yeah, fortunately, we did not have that. We did have issues with the celebration of life, but it all worked out. It made for awkward times when you really just all want to be loving on each other and honoring him, not bickering over something silly.
Death makes people very weird. Everyone processes it differently. Some people get super greedy. And if you start thinking about personalities within the family, some people are pushovers. They let the other person do whatever they want. And then that breeds resentment forever because they didn't stand up for themselves. Someone will come in and try to take whatever they want out of the estate. If you don't list out specific items to go to specific people, that's really where the family infighting and the drama stems from. It might not be right off the bat, but it's 5, 10, 15 years down the road when this resentment has been brewing and brewing. So that's what I said. If you can take those decisions out of their hands, you've already made those decisions for them. That's going to prevent a lot of it.
Yeah, so I just heard that story. One of the women that came this weekend, she's a widow, but when her parents died, she said the same thing. Her siblings came in and took everything. The only thing they left her with was an old safe from the 1800s because it weighed like 300 pounds and they couldn't move it. They took everything. It was her siblings, but there's still definitely some unhappy feelings about that.
My husband shared a story with me that when his mother passed away, she had 10 kids, but she had left money to a specific brother, and he didn't want to help to pay for any of the costs of anything. And they were like, you're getting the money. You should use it to help pay for her funeral costs. Because they were trying to collect and do all these things. Every time he thinks of his mother's funeral, he remembers that different things do happen. They're good today,
but it didn't need to happen. You do all this stuff. A lot of times we hear people say this all the time, like, I'll be dead. What do I care? Well,
yeah, I've heard that.
Really want your kids to be fighting with each other, arguing over who gets the necklace, the ring, the house. And when the person gets the house and they can't afford to keep it up, then what? There's so much of that. The best gift you can give anybody is just have this all done for them. You don't have to risk damaging any relationships. You don't have to risk anybody questioning anything. It's just done. Just do it, you know?
So from grief to financial clarity, and then estate planning without all the chaos and all of the overwhelm. The book is going to bring everyone.
That's the goal.
Where's the keys to the safe?
That's right.
You guys have got to pick this book up. I think that books really do make a great gift. And I know I say it all the time and I might sound like, okay, but I really do mean it. They do make great gifts, especially when it's a different type of book. This is a book that you can get information from that could really help you to get things done. When you're thinking about that gift to give to a loved one, when you're thinking about, okay, she has everything. What else could I get her? Try giving a book, because a book where there's great information. Where's the keys to the safe? I love it. I love it. I'm so grateful that you guys came on to share your story. And I'm glad that you have the support that you need. And that together you guys created a masterpiece. I love that you birthed something out of your grief that's going to help other people.
I'm going to give you a little tip because I heard this from somebody and I was like, that's brilliant. Someone was asking a young adult, 20-something, who had lost her father. They said to her, so you lost your dad. How's that going for you? And I was like, oh, I like that. How's that going for you? It's not like, how are you? Or I'm sorry. Or you're like, every time somebody says, I'm sorry for your loss, I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, what do you say?
I know. It puts everybody in that awkward position.
Says, yeah, it's a conversation stopper instead of a conversation starter.
How's that going for you?
That when I heard it. I haven't used it on anyone myself, but when I heard that, I was like, I am going to remember that because that seems good.
Yeah. And it's like you said, you can say the same thing to 10 different people and they're all going to have a different response. Right. How's that going for you? It depends on how close it is. You don't want to ask that on the second day.
No,
after some time has gone by. So your kids are now adults.
I have a 16-year-old. He's the youngest. He was 9 when his dad got diagnosed. I always say, I mean, they all say he's my favorite, which is true.
You guys are all my favorite, but in the year that you were born. You were my favorite person that was born in the year. And then you're my favorite person that was born 16 years ago. You're my favorite that was born 20 years ago, like that.
You don't do it quite that way because they all say it. Yes, he's your favorite. He's the baby. But my husband was such a great coach and he was such a great dad. Duncan was so young that once John was diagnosed, he went straight into a brain surgery within 2 weeks. Everything to John's health and just keeping him healthy. So I always feel bad for Duncan because he got the shaft. He definitely didn't get the full benefit of having John Baker as his dad, but he is turning into the most like him, which is interesting. He's looking the most like him. It's cool.
I was asked, how is he now?
I think we put him in play therapy from the beginning and he did it for years until he finally was like, I think I'm good now. I'm like, okay, you're good. One of the benefits of knowing, he recorded birthday messages for them for like 6 or 7 years out, college graduation messages and high school, like different messages. And so each year they get their little birthday message. I hold them and I give them to him. It's a little video message. And, you know, he always shares a favorite memory or something. But I love it. And it was so awesome. And they treasure them so much. But now I know we're getting to the end of them. I think he did like 6 years worth. And I'm like, that's going to be terrible. But they're such special gifts, you know, they look forward to. They're like, where's my message? Where's my message?
It sounds like you guys pretty much had it together. Yeah. I know that this book is definitely going to be helpful to people because if you still had some challenges, imagine like Cameron said, the person that's starting at ground zero. And I love that you have those messages and stuff. I would keep that forever.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. And before we end our episode, I do want to turn to both of you. And I guess we can start with you, Pam, or Cameron, whoever wants to go first. What is it that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
What do you want to say?
I kind of said it earlier, but don't wait just because you don't think you have all your ducks in a row to do this. And don't think that just because you don't have $1 million that you don't need an estate plan. Don't procrastinate and get your documents in order, whether that's a will and basic documentation or meeting with professionals that can advise you on more complicated things like trusts and those kind of tools down the road.
Thank you. That's good stuff.
And I'll reiterate that it's really the best gift that you can give anyone, even if it's uncomfortable and awkward. But I do want to leave a message that's specific to widowhood too, in this whole idea of the antiquated version of the widow. People are always like, what is the best thing I can do? What do widows need? And I would say the number one thing you can do for widows is instead of treating them like it's the end of their story, support them in their rebirth, support them in their new chapter, support them in this new journey that they're taking, support them in their journey back to joy. Because honestly, pretty much every woman will be a widow at some point. Most women will, because men tend to die sooner. We're all going to be there. So let's support that status of womanhood. Widows have been through it, so know that they're kind of a badass and support them in that. We're not like the weak little pitied soul that's tucked away. Rebirth and journey back to joy, and support them in whatever way that they need in that journey, in that next chapter.
I love that you're thinking about, like, you guys covered all the corners here, covered it all. I normally ask you, where can they find your book? And I had you do your wrap up before I asked that, but I have to come back to that and say, where can they find the book?
So it's on Amazon. The thing you have to be very careful with, because Amazon is weird. We've even hit the bestseller rank on different levels of their estate planning, but until you have like 100 reviews written and we have like 50 something. You don't get in their algorithm. You have to specifically put, where's the key to the safe, not where is the key to the safe. Then the book will come up, and there's the ebook paperback hardcover. And then you have to put, where's the key to the safe workbook, because Amazon, it doesn't bring them up together. You have to put the workbook. So to get both of them, you have to use both of those. But it's pretty much anywhere you can get books, but Amazon is obviously the go-to place for most people. So that's how you get it. And that's there. If you buy it, leave a review, because then we'll get to that 100 and we'll be in it.
Right on. That's good stuff. And all the information for Cameron and Pam will be in the show notes. You guys, thank you both so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. And I love what I get to do. I get to talk to the best. This show has the absolute best guests of all time.
And great energy. So you bring out the goodness for sure.
Thank you so much